call to order the regular meeting of the Neshoba Regional School Committee. At this moment, it is 7:04 p.m. We'll all begin with my favorite part, the Pledge of the Allegiance to the flag. And if you could all join me by muting, but also rising if you choose. I will recite. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone. So the first item on our agenda is public comment. We have, to my knowledge, received none. And so we will keep moving right along to the consent agenda. And I'd love to start with a motion from Ms. Cohen.
I move to approve the consent agenda of September 27th, 2023, containing draft meeting minutes of September 13th, 2023, and warrants of September 29th, 2023.
I'll second that. Do we have any discussion? Go ahead, Scott.
So I believe the minutes on the 13th ought to be amended to reflect the fact that I provided a report regarding the OPEB committee at that meeting.
Excellent. And Scott, might you provide us with a very brief reminder of what that report was? Mostly so that Alita can make sure that it gets in there.
Have you looked at the packet since you sent that email?
Did you update it?
I uploaded the document again. I don't know what happened, but it was there when I uploaded it the second time.
Oh, I haven't looked at it since, so I
So if
didn't.
you want to take a peek and see if your report is accurate.
Well,
Awesome.
no.
Thanks so much, Alita. Alita to the rescue. But while Scott is just double checking that to make sure that the minutes accurately reflect what he said. Any other discussion?
It looks like the link to the minutes is not working right now.
I had to refresh the page.
Oh,
I was going to say.
Did it
I
work,
tried
Scott?
Yeah.
I tried it like 3 times.
And is everything okay now, Scott?
Yes. The geography is not the best, but it says the right things. Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. Any other discussion? All right, let's take the roll and do my best to go around the room here. I say yes. Shandor.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Amy Cohen.
yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
I think that's everyone. All right, everybody. Thanks for that.
Madam Chair, may I interrupt a moment?
Please.
Ms. Masterson, would it be possible for you to send the meeting, the Zoom link we're in to our OPM and our architects to come into attendance? Because the link they have is the public one. Thank you. Forgive me, Madam Chair.
No worries. I think that I can perhaps move on to my chairperson update as they are trying to enter the meeting. So just a couple of housekeeping matters. First, everyone, on November 8th, we have a meeting scheduled. But as you might be aware, that is the same exact day that we have a couple members, important members, who will be at the MASC-MASS joint conference in Cape Cod. And so what we are hoping to do, Kirk, that is the problem on that day, right?
Yeah, I know that so far Attorney Gleason and myself are attending to represent the district at MASC, but we want to make sure it was available to any other committee members that wanted to go as well. So our request is to shift that meeting from the 8th to the 5th.
So as long as there's no objection, all we want to do simply is move that meeting on the 8th to the 15th instead. Not seeing any objections.
November 15th?
That's right.
Yeah, we have a building committee scheduled for that night, but
On a Wednesday?
yeah.
Interesting. How come we're doing that, Joe?
That's why I don't know. That's what the calendar said. I was looking at the calendar the other day. It said November 15th.
Building committee's supposed to be on Thursdays, right? Or Tuesdays?
Let me take a look just to make sure I'm not mistaken. Hold on.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, it's actually showing up on November 15th and 16th on my calendars.
Oh, okay. So
Interesting. We love school building committee meetings.
yeah, I got it November 15th. So that's what's been posted. So
So that's probably a mistake though, right, Joe? We never meet on the Wednesdays.
I don't know why it's there. It actually says November 15th, 2023, Wednesday. And I don't actually recall why we did that. I know that we were looking that. Oh, there it is. It's I think town of Bolton probably has. There's a change to conflict with the town board. So it may have been Bolton that has a select board meeting that Thursday. So.
All right, Kirk, do you have another suggestion with that conflict in mind?
You know what? Why don't we just move the building committee meeting? You guys have the school committee meeting.
Is that okay? You think we could do that?
This is far more important than the building committee.
Yeah, I think we can manage that.
And there's probably nothing that, well, when do you go to the conference, Joe? Is it do you leave on Tuesday?
Yeah, it's the 8th through the 10th, and I usually leave the night before, but I mean, that's fine with me. I mean, I'm happy to. I attended the last time I was at the MASC conference. I attended remotely, so but that's going to be an in-person meeting, so that's right.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this was more my request because the principals are presenting their school improvement plans that evening, so I wanted to make sure we were in person with my attendance as well. So.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that the school committee or school building committee meeting would have to be done on the 16th, and you would have to just do it virtually from the hotel. Is that okay, Joe?
No. The 15th to the 16th is not when the MASC conference is. That's the 8th through the 10th of November.
I think I'm sorry. Okay, so that doesn't matter.
And just so you know, if everything goes according to plan, you're going to be running the meeting in November.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So if there's no objection, we're going to move the 8th to the 15th. All right. Fantastic. So mark your calendars on that. We'll do the same on the planning calendar, et cetera, et cetera. So just a very quick note before we get underway with the substance of our agenda here. I wanted to make a very quick acknowledgement of the fact that our towns have voted in favor of moving forward with the high school building project, which is something that we are all very grateful for. And we appreciate that the people have put their trust in this committee and in the building committee to move the project forward swiftly. Our goal at this point, our primary goal, is on time and under budget. And we will do everything in our power to take the trust that's been put in us and make this project do exactly what the people want it to be. So a very big thank you to Joe Gleason, to Superintendent Downing, to Amy Cohen, to really everybody on the school building committee and all of our project leaders. We definitely could not have done it without the entire team, and I'm pretty proud of all the hard work that you've all put into this. So thank you everyone for that, and thank you to all the people who showed up to vote and participate. So with that said, Kirk, have our design friends been able to make it in?
I see Mr. Olson in the room, and I'm sure Miss Williams will be here shortly.
Yeah, we're making our way in.
Miss Williams is right here.
Oh, fantastic, Marianne. Welcome. So without objection, Hansia, I hope you don't mind. I would like to maybe move a couple of new business items up to the front of the agenda while we have our designer and our OPM present with us. All right, so seeing no objection, we're going to do that. As you guys know, the school building committee just met in the previous hour, and they have made several recommendations to this committee to execute or grant the superintendent the power to execute contracts with the proposed construction manager, and to amend the designer contract, and to amend the OPM contract for the actual construction phase of the project, the design and construction phase of the project. So what we would like to do is move forward with the first motion. And Joe, I'm going to have to rely on you to make these motions, if that's okay.
Yeah. Just for the members who weren't at the building committee meeting, we have the building committee is recommending Consigli Construction of Milford, Massachusetts as the construction manager at risk for this building project. It was the unanimous recommendation of the search subcommittee of the building committee for Consigli, and it was the unanimous consent of the building committee that we recommend Consigli Construction to oversee the construction of our new high school. So without further ado, Madam Chair, I would move that the district committee adopt the recommendation of the Neshoba Regional High School Building Committee and to retain the services of Consigli Construction Company of Milford, Massachusetts to provide construction management services for the building of the new high school, and to further recommend that this agreement be executed on behalf of the district by Superintendent Downing.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? Questions? I'm not seeing any.
Mr. Horish has a question.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just could you, if it's not too much of a bother, could you link the motion to the chat, or just copy and paste that?
I did that off the top of my head, Mr. Horish.
Of course you did. Okay, no problem. But could you just repeat the motion then?
Yeah, basically the recommendation of the building committee, and by the way, I want to apologize to the committee. Superintendent Downing had tasked me with crafting these motions yesterday, but I was under the impression that Ms. Masterson was going to provide a skeleton version of the motions, and I would just fill in the flesh. So we had a miscommunication. So it's all on me, and I apologize for that, Mr. Horish, and to the members of the district committee. But basically, the building committee is recommending, upon recommendation of the search subcommittee, the construction manager search subcommittee, that Consigli Construction of Milford, Massachusetts be our construction manager at risk. So you know that the building committee had we created the subcommittee, and we did 2 days of interviews with 5 firms who had responded satisfactorily to our request for proposals. So the motion is essentially a recommendation of the building committee to retain the services of Consigli Construction Company as construction manager at risk for this build project, and to further authorize on behalf of the district that Superintendent Downing execute that CM at risk contract.
And so just so that Marianne doesn't feel like her time is totally wasted here.
Yeah.
Marianne, you gave such a great, a couple of very important details at the school building committee meeting. Could you just share with us why you believe Consigli is the right choice?
Yes, we went through a two-step qualifications process. And at the first step of the process, everyone was fully responsive, and we don't rank them at that point in time. We were very pleased to have 5 very large construction companies, construction managers interested in the project. It was Suffolk Construction, Charlotte Design and Construction, Gilbane, Fontaine and Demio joint venture, and Consigli. So once we reviewed that, we sent out an invitation in July for a request for proposal. And in the rest of the request for proposal, they submit 2 parts. One is a technical response, and the other is a pricing response. So we met as a group, and we reviewed the technical proposal, and we invited all 5 firms to interview. It wasn't until you start after you receive the technical response that you rank the firms, you check references, etc. So we ranked the firms at that point. It still could have been any one of the firms still could have been ranked number one. When we got to the interviews, and once we conducted the interviews, we then ranked the firms again, and then we opened the pricing proposals and we did the final ranking of the firms. I think Joe Gleason says it eloquently, but I'll put it in my own words that independent of each other, all members of the CM selection committee had the exact same ranking of all the firms. And what that tells me is that there was a consensus all the way about who would be most advantageous for this project. So I'm very pleased that we were all in agreement that this was the way to move forward.
Excellent. I would say too that Consigli has tremendous experience with the MSBA. I think you said this is their 27th project working with.
Yes, this will be number 28. So they have done 28 Mass School Building Authority projects. They have done more schools than any of the firms that had participated in the process. And my own personal experience, this is the Attleboro High School team, which was 475,000 square feet. Very, very challenging project, excellent project. They performed well. They were within budget, and we're very fortunate to have that team. I really think we got the A team, and it's always, frankly, the buck stops here. If there's a problem, it's my fault, and I want to put the best team in place, and that includes the designer and the architect and OPM. We want to have the best team because this is a big promise, and we're going to deliver on it. So I feel very confident moving forward in the decisions made to date.
Awesome. Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to supplement what Ms. Williams had said, and it was brought up at the building committee meeting. The rankings were done blindly. We deliberated, and then we blindly ranked our choices, and it was amazing that all the choices of the entire committee were identical. So Consigli was the overall consensus. And the other thing I wanted to add was, and I don't think there's any discomfort or any of the members, but one thing that I will tell you that really put it over the top, at least from my perspective with Consigli, was that they presented by far the best geothermal tech engineer of all 5 responding companies. First part of this project is going to be the drilling of the geothermal wells, and they clearly had an individual that really is adept in this. And in addition to that, and speaking to Ms. Williams, she knew him from when he worked at Skanska. Is that not correct? Yes, Ms. Williams. And she also spoke very highly. His name is Mr. Ed Du Bois. And he really was impressive with his knowledge of geothermal technology. So with that, Madam Chairman, I'll go back to you.
Excellent. Are there any other questions about this motion to approve Consigli? All right, everyone. We are going to move to the vote. Joe.
Yes.
Amy Cohen.
Yes.
Myself. Yes. Shandor.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
I think I got everyone. Okay. So the next piece is to amend the contracts that we already have right now with our design team and OPM to extend them into the construction phase. And so, Joe, I will turn it over to you to first seek to or move to amend the designer contract.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. On behalf of the Neshoba Regional High School Building Committee, which again is a unanimous recommendation thereof, I would move that the district committee approve the amendment to the OPM services contract as so provided in the meeting materials. This amendment is memorialized under Article 8. It includes Articles 8.1 and 8.3 through 8.8 inclusive. And I will further read into the minutes, so the record of this meeting, that it is the OPM's request that that we understand and acknowledge that Article 8.1 is to supplement and not supersede the original Article 8.1 and the original standard contract between the parties. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I will second that motion. Is there any discussion on this amended designer contract?
Yeah,
KVA.
there is no way I'm getting that in the chat.
Thanks for trying, though. Alita, I know, goes back and watches the video and transcribes motions. Thanks, Alita. All right, I'm seeing no discussion, so we are going to take the vote. Joe?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Amy Cohen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Amy Vessels?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Karen, did I get you? Thank you. Shondor?
Yes.
Think I got everybody? All right, so let's move to the final piece here, and that is to amend the OPM contract kind of in the same vein. So Joe, I'll go back to you again.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yet again, the recommendation of the building committee is that we also further amend the services agreement with our architects, Kessel Booth Associates, Inc. And that in that regard, I would move that the district committee approve the amendments to the KBA, Kessel Booth Associates, Inc. services agreement for construction manager at risk supplemental services as so provided in the meeting materials.
I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will go to the vote. Joe?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Amy Cohen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Yes. Amy Vessels?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Shondor?
Yes.
And I think I got everyone. Oh, I'm sorry, Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody. That'll do it for school building committee topics for this evening. Thanks to Marianne and Craig for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We have a long road ahead, but we look forward to it.
Yes.
Leah, I have a question, point of order. On the agenda, it says something about MSBA votes. Did you?
Oh, that
Remember?
you mean in my chairperson's update?
Yes.
Yeah, that was just my reminder to say how excited we were that
Oh, okay.
all of this is
Okay.
moving forward.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Amy. Okay, guys, so we're gonna go back up to Roman numeral 5, testing your Roman numeral skills here, to our student representative. Hansi is here to give us an update on student life.
Hi everyone. So I have a pretty short and simple report tonight. I think as everyone's getting back into routine and the clubs are rolling out, we're just starting to see more school spirit just flow right back into the building. With that said, we finally have our new student council advisor. It's Miss Foley Procco. So we will be having our second student rep elected shortly in the near future. So hopefully that's a junior so they can continue this when they're a senior next year. And then Parents Night at the open house was really successful on Parents Night on open house last week. So a lot of them liked seeing the display of clubs that we offer, and they thought it was a really neat experience to go and like see their kids' classes and just experience kind of a day in the life. Senior college planning night was last night, and that was also very successful. And then we have our football home opener on Thursday, and I think the theme is whiteout. And that's all I have for tonight.
Sounds great. Thanks, Hansi. Any questions for Hansi about the high school? All right. Well, seeing none, sounds like you guys are off to a fantastic start. I know everything that I hear is all great. So have a good week, Hansi. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right, everybody, we're going to move over to the superintendent's report, and so I'm going to turn it over to Kirk.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your recognition. It's great to see everybody here tonight. I'm going to begin my report with my opportunity to thank the people who made the approval of this of the new Neshoba Regional High School building project possible. And the first people I want to thank are the voters of our three towns. It was a long process of education, informing, and appearing in front of groups to provide them the best information we could give them so that voters could go to the polls feeling informed about what it is they were voting for. So I also want to recognize that for those that did not vote to affirm, we are going to do this responsibly. We're going to be diligent. As Mr. Gleason has said over and over, our goal is on time and under budget. And Ms. Friend and I are working with town officials and our Council on Aging on community connections as we want to grow that both in our schools but in our future building as well. So thank you to all the folks out there in our communities. I also want to thank the members of this committee and the members of our committees that are no longer on this committee. They were a part of this. Superintendent Clenchy as well. And all the folks that put in the effort. Mr. Gleason had a chance to recognize several of those people in our school building committee. But this is my opportunity to embarrass our chair, Mr. Joe Gleason, who has put in countless hours. He and I are looking forward to not talking on the phone multiple times a day as we move into design phase. But this committee and our entire community should know the time, effort, and dedication that Mr. Gleason, Attorney Gleason, has put into serving our community. So thank you, Attorney Gleason, and thank you to all of you on our board who made this possible. So without further ado, I'll get into more of my report here. A quick update on our equity audit. We're not stalling. We want to make sure we have the right and best choice for the Neshoba Regional School District. So we're vetting out a couple more options. It is our goal to have that secured by November 1st with activities to begin shortly after January 1st and a presentation to this committee by the conclusion of the school year. So Mr. Mulcairn and I are working on that, and we will come back to this committee with updates as we have it. In parallel to that, which will complement and broaden our ability to do equity work in the district, is that we've applied to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for the Teacher Diversity Grant. It's a program that's designed around the recruitment and retention of a diverse workforce for school systems across the Commonwealth. And one of the buckets for which you could apply was around professional development, because we believe for us to be leaders in equity, we need to work internally as a team and build our skills there. So we've applied for that grant. We have not heard on that award yet. And so a couple of our activities are contingent upon that award because they do come with some professional development costs. So we will update you on those as we move forward. In terms of our strategic work, you're essentially getting a safety update today. The first is on the Raptor security system. You probably have noticed in our schools, as Nurse Becky updated the committee last year about the Raptor system that's coming to our schools that is now in place. Our staff are trained, and the system is to further improve safety in our schools. So all campus visitors have to enter the main entrance to receive a badge. The Raptor uses the visitor's name and birth date and photo for comparison with a national database of registered sex offenders custom database containing confidential alerts. It does not gather any data or share data outwardly. When a visitor's cleared, Raptor prints a badge for the visitor to wear throughout the building, and then they check out at the end. As we've been working so far, the system seems to be working well. We've had to educate our communities and our families. They've been coming well. But I do think this was an excellent step for us to further ensure that the people who are coming through the doors of our schools are properly vetted as they enter a school building full of children. And just as an aside, that includes our vendors and other visitors that come in regularly. Oh boy, I need to somehow correct my view. I just lost my screen. Excuse me just a moment. Thank you. I lost all my notes when this meeting went full screen on me. And last of all, I want to bring to your attention Lightspeed notification. Lightspeed notification is a notification system, how we monitor technology in the school district. So in other words, it is a protection to ensure that if there's messages going out that are threatening to others or threatening to oneself, we get notifications so that we can work with that person, work with that family to intervene. The Lightspeed notification is only installed and used on district devices. It's just part of our standard build and helps us monitor safety in the event that the unforeseen event that we could get out in front of and prevent. So it is something that we don't have notifications directly to families because there's privacy concerns when doing that, which is why we are notified as district officials and we reach out to them. It's important to note that this is it's an email notification system, so it is not an emergency system at all. It is just a notification system that can help us intervene where possible. And with that, I will take any questions about the superintendent report.
Excellent. I think I see Dana's hand.
I just wanted to comment that I actually used the Raptor system recently, and it was awesome. I really liked it. It was very easy to use. I will say I was not thrilled that my driver's license picture also printed on my name badge. Not my proudest moment, but it was really easy. And they said that once you kind of do it the first time, it's even easier subsequent times because it's like everything is already in the system already. So I really liked it. I thought it was a great addition, definitely.
Ms. Ellis, thank you. And if I can capitalize on that moment. So as people come and visit our buildings, they are then we know who the visitors have been in our building, of course. And so as Ms. Ellis is a regular visitor to Center School, she can enter into the office and that information can be pulled up and her badge can be printed. So as we get better with that system, our office professionals will be working with our regular visitors, our members of our PTO to make it seamless.
Excellent. Over to Shandor.
I have questions about both of the systems, but starting with Raptor, since we've been talking about it. I know some other schools have struggled with when it does return a result for a parent on whether to allow them into the building. And that I'm just wondering if there is a plan in place for positive results or negative, however you want to, bad results.
Mr. Simon, that's a great question. Of course, I wouldn't publicize what our protocols are. You would never want to do that. But what I can tell you is, yes, we do have protocols in place in the event that it comes out positive. And the district has vetted those safety procedures and we would enact them in that case, yes.
So without getting into details, would you deny a parent access to the school?
If it's warranted, yes.
Okay. And then with Lightspeed, my understanding is that uses AI to do sort of behavioral analysis to determine students that are at risk of self-harm and harm to others. Is that a fair characterization of what that system is?
No, I am not aware of that claim.
Okay, I'm just
we simply get the reports based upon the AI analysis of the words that are transmitted through the computer, as we have identified this as a potentially harmful statement, and then that is sent to us, and so we're able to vet that out ourselves.
Yeah, and so it would send alerts on school devices being used not on campus, off hours, that kind of thing?
Yes, because it's device based.
And does anyone monitor those reports off hours, or is that just during the school day?
The company monitors those reports, and they're forwarded on to us via an email.
Okay.
So the support is a 24/7 support, and then it's forwarded. But of course, as I said, it is not an emergency notification system by any stretch of the imagination. It is simply an opportunity that if there's potential harm or danger that could be done, we would have an opportunity to intervene.
Okay.
Great. Over to Amy.
Yeah, the Lightspeed system, is that something we've already been using? Or is
Yeah,
this-
it is a system that has been in place. As we were giving a safety update, I just wanted to take this opportunity to make sure I shared that with this committee.
Okay, because it sounded like something that had already been in place, that, I actually, as a parent, had received a notification, based on something that was written on a device that one of my kids was using as part of a creative story writing exercise, and it triggered that. So I just didn't know if this is a new protocol or not. So,
Ms. Cohen, thank you for that that story, because that is the vast majority of things that we would see that come across as benign, and like somebody will be writing in voice in a story, and it might alert in some way, which is why we vetted to say, okay, there's no there. But we have had a few instances where families were very grateful we were able to intervene because a student wasn't feeling safe in some form or fashion.
Great. All right. So I think that wraps up the superintendent report. Thanks, Kirk.
Yep.
So guys, we're going to move on to new business, and we have 3 items that remain, as I see. The first is the superintendent goal presentation. And so Kirk is so just to tee this up a little bit, the personnel subcommittee has met with Kirk, and we use the school committee's feedback that we tried to gather at the workshop regarding which indicators you would like Kirk to be focused on this year. Personnel subcommittee also met with him to discuss the ongoing exercise of goal setting. And so what he has done tonight is constructed a presentation that will help you understand what his goals are going to look like for this 3rd year. And keep in mind, guys, that after this 3rd year, Kirk will move toward the next stage of the evaluation cycle, which means it will be every 2 years, which is, I think, a lot more appropriate. So this is the last 1-year cycle that he will be on. So the presentation will help you understand what his goals are. He is looking to take feedback if you think it is appropriate, and then we will vote on the goals at our next meeting. All right, so if there are no questions about process, I'm going to turn it over to you, Kirk, and you can provide us with some understanding of what your goals will be this year.
You bet. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. In the meeting materials are 2 documents. One is the draft superintendent Kirk Downing's FY24 goals, and then a slide deck, superintendent goals for NRSD strategic plan for this year. And I just did the full screen again. Let me come back. Okay. So in doing so, I'm going to just start and go all the way to the finish line. So if you have some questions along the way, make sure to jot them down. And I know there's a lot of information on these pages, so I'm going to move briskly through that information and hit the highlights that I think are important. But I think the way I want to set this up is in talking with the personnel subcommittee, I want to present the documents in a way there's that straight through line to ultimately superintendent evaluation at the end of the year. And so as we finish this up, I'll be looking for some feedback from this committee in terms of if that helps you. And for our new members to the committee, I'm going to do my best to sort of set you up for your role in this process as well. So let me share my screen. Okay, the first thing to show you here is these are the draft superintendent goals. I'm not going to present this document. I just want to scroll through it to illustrate to you the design of the document, because the formative assessment, or excuse me, the summative assessment will essentially look like the same format for which you will fill in the ratings. So as you scroll through here, the introduction explains the elements of the superintendent evaluation. The district improvement goals being part one, superintendent goals, which is the student learning and professional practice goal. And those goals are lifted from the district improvement goals or our strategic plan with more detail. And then the last section is evaluation on the performance standards. The district goals are broken into the 4 categories. Again, the professional learning goal and student learning goal and professional practice. And then the items that you all indicated are, these are the standards that we'd like to focus on out of the 30-odd some standards elements that come on the superintendent evaluation. We select 8. So the ones highlighted in yellow are the ones where committee members, multiple committee members said that's an important standard for us to be looking at. So the items highlighted in blue are items that I suggested to the personnel subcommittee that we agreed upon based on the district work that we're doing. So just to lay out this goal, it lays out the objective, the planned activities, and later at the end of the year, you will evaluate. Did not meet, some progress, significant progress, met and exceeded. I will let you know that when it comes to the district improvement goals, we recognize right up front, significant progress is likely in much of this area because these are multiple year goals. It's not as if we are expecting to come to completion on all these things at the end of the year. As a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. So I want to recognize that and name that up front. So you have the strategic objectives, the student learning goals, which I'll go into detail in the presentation. And then the last part, section 3, performance on standards, gives the proficiency language for each of the standards that you identified that you would like to provide feedback on this year. So with that, I'll move over into the presentation. Okay. So when evaluating the superintendent, as I said, there are 3 parts. The district improvement plan, which is our strategic objectives, our strategic plan. Part 2 is the superintendent's goals, my student learning goal, professional practice goal, and then the performance standards. So our strategic objectives are connections and communications, teaching, learning, and leading, culture and belonging, human resources, facilities, and finance. In our first objective, we are going to be hitting the strategic initiatives here in terms of developing consistent communication structures, universal access to information, improving on communicating student progress, and developing and implementing a family university. Some planned activities that we have there around launching the new website. And you're going to see this in my professional practice goal, and it's around publishing finance and operations transparency page and providing informational videos to complement that page. A big step that we are taking this year for communication is decoupling this school psychologist evaluation team chair role to allow the team chair to focus on working with families. This is a role that has been dual in the past, and the feedback has been, particularly with our families that are special education families or being considered for special education through the evaluation process. This is going to allow that team chair to fully focus on those elements. I think that's going to be a major step in our communication efforts with that sector of our organization. Hosting listening sessions with communications around the hiring of a new PPS director. Activating our communications specialists to send out press releases and social media communications. Promoting communications of accomplishments, offerings of opportunities to 8th grade students for enrollment at Neshoba Regional High School. Our team is working on this right now to show our 8th graders the awesome opportunities they have here at Neshoba. We're establishing communication cycles with families relative to the universal screening data. You're going to learn more about that information at the 2nd October school committee meeting in a presentation from Assistant Superintendent Friend. And with our family university, this year we're going to conduct a needs assessment to generate those salient topics for our family university. We'll administer surveys to families to gather feedback on potential topics, and then we'll propose a schedule. Our next category, teaching, learning, and leading, is around the strategic initiatives of conducting an audit around our curriculum revision cycle. This is a continuation of the audit information that was provided last year as we move now into those revision cycles. We have invested in and begun our work with professional learning community teams around the school district, developing a district-wide instructional coaching model through our literacy and math coaches. We're going to be examining all school schedules, both K through 8 and 9 through 12, that facilitate best use of instructional time, better access to course offerings, and deeper collaboration for staff. The May school committee meetings are currently forecasted for presentation of those schedules to the school committee. We're also going to be looking at the leveling process of courses at the secondary level. And we're going to create and develop that multi-tiered systems of support approach. This, I know, is going to be a multiple year approach. And as we go along, the professional learning community teams, our STAT teams, those are all things that are all part of MTSS, along with professional development and high quality instruction. So as we look to those action steps, and we look at that strategic plan, excuse me, I need to move my window here. Looking at our district-wide curriculum line development mapping from 1 year of the strategic plan, focusing on deeper learning and deeper assessment. So this is where this is a priority step. As we did the work of aligning the curriculum, it's now about what is that deep instructional practice? What is the essential learning that needs to be done in the classrooms? Because deeper assessments grows out of high quality instruction. We want to make sure that we're doing this thoroughly so that it doesn't become simply a compliance task of updating current assessments. Rather, it's thinking about assessment in the way that we want to show students demonstrating their learning. So this is a breakdown of the work that will be done there around the curriculum work. Implementing high quality instructional materials, that's the HQIM with 6th to 8th grade science. Last year, I know our team spoke to this committee about Open SciEd. And continuing our universal design for learning, professional development to help our teachers grow those deeper learning strategies related to deeper assessment. As we look to year one of our multi-tiered systems of support, we'll be looking at how our coaches are working together in our data teams and the deployment of our math and reading specialists to and our classroom teachers to provide targeted instruction to our students. I think what's critical in understanding MTSS is it's not about the interventions as much as it's about high quality instruction for all students at the tier 1 level. So we're also going to be working on supporting the high school administration and faculty and department heads and look at the current curriculum offerings with a lens of innovation experiential learning opportunities, and the development of portrait of graduate competencies to inform the future design of the instructional day. And I know that right now, Dr. Boynton and her team are currently working on that, have mapped out their meetings for the year to ultimately bring to this committee in May. We're going to be apply funding from the Innovation Pathway Planning Grant for Neshoba Regional High School, and I believe we'll be talking about that later this evening. And develop recommendations and a proposed plan for the K-12 digital learning and innovation. As you know, Jed Stefanos was hired as our Director of Innovation and Digital Learning. So through the entry work that Mr. Stefanos will be doing, we'll be learning more about those recommendations. In culture and belonging, we mentioned that we're going to continue striving to complete our equity audit this year so we can develop our plan and understand what we need to do to deepen understanding and strengthening practices and culturally responsive teaching, integrating social emotional learning again this year, and growing that pre-K to 12 identity. Those activities are around conducting the audit, as I mentioned before, and we're looking at some leadership equity workshops, and that is pending the grant that I mentioned earlier in my report. We will restart the district equity team, is our hope by the conclusion of the year, that our school-based teams will have at least launched their initial meeting as we do the equity audit work this spring. Implementing now will be after our first initial year of the Panorama surveys on social emotional needs and measure progress towards improving overall school culture and climate. We're going to be hosting listening sessions with community members and employees to shape the hiring process for the Pupil Personal Services Director. I mentioned that earlier as well in our communications. We're implementing middle school advisory in all 3 towns. Dr. Larry Epstein will continue to work with our faculty and staff on calm, compassionate teaching. We're going to measure the impact of our dean positions and our assessment of guidance across the district as well. And we're going to look at those SIP and AGIC projects at the middle school and high school levels that is tied to our social studies curriculum, and work with our Council on Aging organizations to find out what are those community connections we can be working to grow that pre-K to 12 Neshoba identity. And our 4th domain on our strategic plan is human resources, facilities, and finance. Will continue to create that distributive leadership work. We're going to articulate our priorities in the budget. We're going to hire, recruit, and retain qualified, diverse staff. And we're going to make time and financial commitments for the PD that's necessary to make the work happen throughout our strategic plan. And then we're also going to improve and sustain our physical environments to promote a healthy and vibrant learning conditions in all buildings. So those activities, we need to assess the balanced leadership approach, as we were able to put into the budget this year by reorganizing staffing and job responsibilities, deans at the middle schools, Counselor Florence Sawyer, literacy and math coaches, and redefining the role of the department heads. We're going to create that Finance and Digital Operations Transparency Center to include the items that are listed here. And then we're enrolled in the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education to educate our human resources staff on how to bring more diversity to the Neshoba workforce. And finally, it just so happens, one of our important goals this year is to secure approval and funding for a new Neshoba Regional High School. And as we discussed earlier tonight, that has occurred and we are now on our way in design. So the next piece, part 2, is the superintendent goals, the student learning goal and the professional practice goal. These are goals that are specifically tied to the work that I'm doing as a superintendent to address student learning and professional practice. What's important to see is in our student learning goal, we should be writing a SMART goal that's strategic, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic, it's time-bound. And so we want to look at where we've invested our time, professional development, and our resources over these 2 years. And we could do this now that we have our universal screening assessments through Renaissance Learning to help us understand the types of impact that we're having. So the goal is, working in collaborative teams, we will implement best practices to ensure at least 70% of our kindergarten through 8th grade students meet typical and high growth learning targets on the START 360 universal screening assessments by the conclusion of the 23-24 school year. I'll remind this committee that Renaissance Learning is a platform that is used kindergarten through 9th grade, which is why this goal is written K-8, because in 9th grade, we don't do it universally with all students at this point, nor is it a tool that necessarily we would see as a universal tool at the high school level. It's important, however, that we look at, in terms of writing a student learning goal, that we measure the impact of where we have put time and investment in. And this goal is based on growth. So it is not a benchmark target. In other words, meeting a proficiency target. This is a type of goal where a student may be having a very difficult time, and at their benchmark assessment in the fall, they would compare that to the benchmark assessment in the spring, and those universal screeners will give us a growth measure and compare that student to like students, not compare that student against the entire student body. In that way, you can break apart your student body into bandwidths so that you can understand, is a student that is demonstrating high performance on the early screening assessments also making growth throughout the year relative to other students that performed at that area. Ms. Friend will be going into more detail about that at her presentation at the 2nd October school. So the activities to support this goal: implementing the math and literacy coaches, providing them training, engaging in those PLC meetings, training the coaches on the leadership techniques to build consensus and advance strategic work. We're going to leverage the PLC school grade level department meetings to analyze data and school student growth measures. These are new efforts for us that will, I think, inform our MTSS structures. And we're implementing the What I Need to Know blocks into the master schedules K-8 to support students that may need some additional instruction or extensions based on what's being taught in the classroom. And finally, our leaders will be bringing back their learning mid-year at their mid-year State of the School cycle reports to the Leadership Council. Professional practice goal, as I mentioned before, is to create a comprehensive communication strategy to inform and actively engage the community on issues related to school district initiatives, governance, budget, and policy. By May 1st, 2024, we'll have developed and published a transparency center on the NRSD webpage that provides a one-stop location for fiscal and operational information. The activities we'll do there to launch the Apogee website, providing descriptions and a roadmap for finding fiscal information, providing fiscal documents and agreements that impact development of the budget. I see that I made an error in my presentation here. We'll also have those accompanying videos to help people navigate that. We're going to create a finance and operations digital transparency center to include the following, going back 7 years: annual proposed voted budgets, annual audits, achieve all iterations of presentations throughout the budget process, publish staffing practices and guidelines for Unit A and C, non-represented personnel, and of course the collective bargaining agreements for our bargaining units. Finally, the third part of the superintendent performance standard, which we don't need to go into tonight as this is a focus on our goals meeting. I just took the liberty to include it tonight to educate you on the final element of what you will be evaluating me on at the conclusion of the school year. And it's within these 4 standards of instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. And instructional leadership, this committee has pointed us to focus on instruction, assessment, and data-informed decision-making as the areas they will be providing feedback and looking for evidence. In the area of management operations, we will be studying the environment, what are scheduling and management information systems, as well as the fiscal systems. In standard 3, sharing responsibility is the key standard here. I would note that fiscal systems, sharing responsibility, and the final standard in professional culture of a shared vision are the 3 additional standards that we've added to complete the 8 focus standards for this year. The detail of those standards can be found in the other document, goals document that I provided you this evening. Again, the focus is not on those elements tonight, but I just wanted to provide them to you so you could have a comprehensive look at the 3 elements that will ultimately go into the superintendent's summative evaluation. So in summary, I thank the committee for their feedback. We have a robust agenda again. I believe Mr. Haresh categorized it as audacious last year. But the fact of the matter is we have a lot of work going on in a lot of areas that interweave and entangle themselves. And so it's work that we just have to continue to advance forward. And rather than thinking of as new work, it's a continuance of the journey of the work that we're already on. So with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to take any questions from our committee.
Great. Thanks, Kirk. Awesome. Yep. All right, everybody. So that was obviously a good amount of information to take in. I wonder if you have any questions on the content of the presentation. I'll let Karen start.
I have a question about the student learning goals. So I'm just curious what the baseline percentage is for kindergarten to 8th grade, whether that's from last June or it's from this September. I don't know if that's been done yet. Just so we kind of know how much growth we're looking at, kind of where that baseline is to get to that 70%.
So when you're looking at growth percentages and the distribution of students in a data set, you would expect a normal bell curve.
Mm-hmm.
And low growth are students that showed growth in the 0 to 35% band. Typical growth is the group of students that show growth in the 35th to 65th percent band. And then high growth is those above, their growth targets are above 65%. So typical to high growth would be 35 and up. So that is a 65% growth total. We've advanced that to 70%. And so that data distribution, of course, is over the data sets of the million of data points that Renaissance Learning has. And we can get comparative analysis to the United States, to Massachusetts, to our district. So by setting that goal at 70%, what we're saying there is we're striving for more growth than what is typical. And we're doing that in an effort to challenge ourselves and raise those expectations to address any learning development as a result of COVID, because we don't like to lose the term learning loss in my office. And I'll tell you why, because you can't lose something you haven't had yet. What we want to do is accelerate the learning so that the cohorts of students across the grades begin to catch up to the performance of their peers in previous years.
All right. Over to Dana.
Sorry, I think I missed it. Did you give a percentage, a baseline percentage? Is it close to 70? Did you say it was 65?
Excuse me. Yes, the typical and high growth is 65 cents over the entire set of data. We're shooting for 70%.
Okay. If it's a mid-year review, we're at risk of not meeting that goal. Do you have additional resources you can throw at the problem, or some sort of what options do you have to explore?
I think that is the point of why we've added in our professional learning communities, because the important question isn't additional resources as much as what is the instruction and the targeted efforts that we're making in our instruction, so that we can be able to address those needs in that second half. So that's typically what happens.
Okay. And I just have one more question. So I think one of your points was you are developing a district-wide instructional coaching model, but hasn't this already been rolled out? Don't we have coaches throughout the district? So is there not a model? Is it kind of like developing as you go?
Well, it's 27 days old. So okay. It is growing the professional development in those people along the way.
Okay.
Great. I think Amy has her hand up. Amy Cohen.
Yeah, thank you. This is a really densely packed, ambitious plan again, not surprisingly. But I wanted to ask questions about some of the changes. I'm trying to find it on here again, but talking about adding an advisory at middle school and how that supports the student learning goal. I think that probably is where it landed. Maybe it was shared leadership.
Yeah, it's actually in the culture and belonging goal in number
Okay.
3, and it's part of our social, and that is in the district strategic plan.
Oh, okay. So this is
So
something
it's
that
not
was
part
like,
of the student learning goal. Yeah.
okay. Isn't that something that already exists? Advisory? Or?
It hasn't been universal across our 3 middle schools, and so our 3 middle schools are working together. So that's an example of one of our priorities was developing like programming across our 3 middle schools. And so this is the year that we're expanding that model across all 3.
Okay. Is that something that the deans will be working with or helping implement?
Yeah, it is the deans in conjunction with their building leadership that do that. Advisory really is the responsibility of all the faculty and staff that are involved with students. And it's around working with those small groups, building trusted adult relationships. But we need a champion of that. And so our deans will be a champion of those efforts at our schools to make sure that systematically and operationally things are working, but also making sure that students are being attended to and any adjustments needed. They're the leaders essentially of that.
Okay. I had 2 more questions. Is that okay, Leah? One of them has to do with the multi-tiered systems of support.
Yeah.
I think I said that correctly. Could you just talk a little bit about how that goal will help support students with dyslexia and other special needs?
Well, I think when we're talking about multi-tiered systems of support, what we have now in our master schedules that we didn't have before is what I need now blocks. And those are opportunities that as we get into our data sets, and we're in the universal screening assessment window right now, and we gather that data up, we'll be able to identify where are some skill deficits that we need to strengthen with students and work collaboratively in those PLC teams to develop uniquely independent methodologies based on grade levels and teams of how to address those targeted needs and provide them the targeted instruction.
Okay.
So there's also places where in those universal screeners where we're going to be identifying who are students that are going to be needing to get some type of intervention with one of our specialists with more degree. But also when we're talking about those screeners and we're talking about dyslexia and we're talking about qualification for special education services, it's only been recently that dyslexia was even a qualifying category. And so it's never been a category of disability by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. That's only been applicable, I believe it's in the last 2 years. And so as we look towards that, now the early screening devices, our early literacy screening devices, all match the language from DESE on requirements for dyslexia screening at the kindergarten, first grade, and into the second grade levels if necessary. So this platform addresses that need, and we'll be able to address that through our assessments and then our targeted.
Okay, thank you. I know that kind of made you get into the weeds a little bit, but
yeah.
I think that's on the minds of a few people lately. The last question has to do with how is the state of the school presentations? Give me 1 second. I'm going to go close my door because my dogs are barking.
Go ahead. I'm going to go to Mike. Mike, go ahead.
Well, my dogs are barking at the end of the day as well. So Superintendent Downing, thank you for the presentation. I apologize for not bringing this up at our personnel subcommittee meeting. But the more you do this, the more you see it, the more questions come up. On the sixth slide of your presentation for teaching, learning, and leading, you have a bulleted list of strategic initiatives, and one of them is strategic initiative number 2: develop a professional learning community culture across all schools, departments, and grade levels. Would you mind expanding on how we're going to go about doing that and where we expect to be by the end of this school year with regards to that strategic objective or initiative, rather?
Yeah. So, and what's difficult about this is not one of those things that you can just throw out a simple measure to. Now, there are some internal measures in terms of surveys that we do with ourselves to understand what we have in practice. Professional learning communities is really an approach, a methodology of looking at learning systematically, sharing our thinking, working interdependently as a group of people towards common goals. And so it is a methodology steeped in data and proven instructional practice to get kids what they need. And so our principals and our coaches will be the leaders and facilitators of grade level and department meetings where the teachers will be looking at student work and student data to understand how instruction is translating into learning. This is something that our school system has never done before in a systematic way across the grades. This is going to inform our teachers, but it's also going to inform our families when we begin to see signals. Because if we're being transparent, we want to share with families before they ask. And so that's really what transparency is. Transparency is not giving you what you ask for. It's giving it to you before you have to ask for it. And so this is our goal in trying to get to these places. And those PLC meetings that are happening once a cycle, so that means every 6 days, and think of them sort of alternating. 1 week it's literacy, the next week it's math. And it was part of the negotiated agreement that we recently signed with our Unit A collective bargaining group, where we've carved out time in the day for faculty and staff to be doing that work. So we're investing in this. And it's going to be a data-based approach, and we're going to examine these practices and look to our data to tell us where we need to direct our improvement, direct our resources.
So just to clarify, these PLC meetings are already in place this year and are happening once per cycle?
They are happening now.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Amy, back to you.
Thank you. All right, my last question is about the state of the school presentations that you are going to be getting. I think you said at the mid-year from building principals. How is the information that's presented to you during those share-outs brought back to the school committee and I guess the community at large, so that folks can be aware of progress that's being made or, areas for improvement as the year is progressing?
Well, these are our operational meetings. I guess it's the same way as that we don't necessarily print and publish our agendas and the work that are done in our regularly monthly leadership council meetings, but it is work that we come back to this committee. And so, for instance, we're having our presentation on our Renaissance learning data to this committee in October. That is one of those presentations. And so throughout, you all get it through the sprinkling of information throughout the year as we look at our social emotional learning data, as we look at our student learning data. We come back to this committee in those segments to do that. What the State of the Unions are for the principals is mid-year, they'll come back and I want them to give their notices, the things that their faculty and staff are wondering about that are priority adjustments for the second half of the year. Because that's their opportunity to come and demonstrate that in a collaborative way with their colleagues and to generate and think of ideas where they may have some questions or some needs. It's an element of the professional learning community work. And so then the summary work to that is always done in the summertime as well. And that's what sets up the school improvement plans, which you'll get in November. And so the school improvement plans that you're going to see is a result of this summer's State of the Union addresses where they presented their information and collaborated on what the priorities will be.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So I'm not seeing any more hands to discuss Kirk's goals presentation. I do thank you, Kirk, for that very thorough and again, ambitious
I need
approach.
another glass of water.
So everybody, of course, you have the next couple of weeks to ponder more. If you have any issues or questions or anything that you would like to understand more, just let me know and I can I can funnel it all to Kirk and we will vote on this at the next meeting. All right, we're going to move on to our next item in new business, and that's the school committee goals update. If you guys can, in the meeting materials, we have a Google Sheet that I will actually share if you don't mind, Alita. Let's see. Yeah, let's give that a try. All right. Can you guys all see the Google Sheet? Thumbs up if you can see it. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Okay, so I can't really see all of you now that I'm sharing, so please just feel free to jump in if you have questions. I'd like to vote on the school committee goals tonight. At the workshop over the summer, we set the subcommittees to the task of establishing goals for all the important things that we do. We always think it's a good idea to let the subcommittees drive it, even though these are goals for the entire school committee. So what you guys can see here, the column that I've highlighted is really a summary of the goals. And then the action steps and the benchmarks are to the right. We also make sure that each one of the goals is connected to the strategic plan and is using the lens of DEIB to make sure that we are always seeking equity in our pursuits. So Budget and Warrant has submitted a goal. Policy has submitted a goal. Communications has submitted a goal, which is probably the one that is the most different. Personnel has submitted 2 goals, with the latter potentially needing to just be eliminated, but we can talk about that shortly. And then I submitted a goal around the creation of our DEIB statement, which that work is underway. So I don't know that we need to necessarily present these discreetly. I wonder if anybody has any comments or questions on any of the goals. Go ahead, Mike.
Leah, will a PDF of this document be available on the district website?
Yeah, so eventually, once we formalize and vote on this and say yes, there is a page on the district website that is for the school committee goals that are currently from last year. And so this column will ultimately become that page on the website.
Dynamite, thank you.
Yep.
Leah, I have a question.
Go for it.
We have 2 other subcommittees, right? We have a building.
The advisories.
Maybe that's why they're not showing up. Building committee and negotiations, are those considered advisories? And that's
No, those are subcommittees.
okay. But they're not on here because they don't have to come up with like an annual goal because their purpose is different and specific to like achievable outcomes, like building project, and negotiations is contract related or whatever.
Yeah, those are they're almost seen as kind of special projects that are not regular or annual.
Okay.
Yeah, so the contract has to be, we have, just for the committee and the community's notice, we have one more contract negotiation that is getting underway shortly for our Unit C bargaining unit. The Unit A was completed successfully in June. So the Unit C folks agreed to postpone until September, and so that's getting underway now. That is not necessarily a goal that needs to be set, although we could if we wanted to add it. And then the building committee is kind of held to its own standard and, by the MSBA and various mass general laws. So we don't necessarily need to set a goal to hold ourselves accountable for that. I think I see Jackie's hand.
Yeah, I think my question is a little similar to Amy's. I'm thinking about the CPAC and what role we play in supporting the work that they do and whether or not there would be a proposed goal.
Yeah, we've never done a CPAC goal before. That is largely because CPAC is a slightly different entity. It is not simply an advisory that is a function of our school committee specifically. It's actually a state mandated or regulatory entity that almost operates semi-autonomously from us. And so they perhaps have goals. And then we liaise with them. They are not so much advisory to the school committee.
Okay.
As say the RAAC would have been. That said, there's nothing preventing us from setting goals. So, if we wanted to add to this list, we typically want to keep our goals to 4, I don't know, anywhere from 4 to 6 goals. After 6 starts getting a little messy.
I think it's just some food for thought, perhaps maybe next year in our planning process, knowing that having participated on the CPAC myself on and off for several years, like it would be nice to be able to, I think, at the district and school committee level to support the work that they're doing alongside, just being mindful of that sense of belonging for all students. So maybe not something that we necessarily have to tackle this year, but perhaps something that we could consider for our next year.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, so I just wanted to point you in the direction of the DEIB statement goals. So this is something that I crafted in isolation, and I just want to make sure that everybody's okay with that. I just want to point it out. It says, because it's fairly new, that the school committee, we've already kind of committed to this through the workshop, but I'm just formalizing it through a goal that we will commit to crafting some formal statement regarding our commitment to our core values and the strategic objective number 3, and as it relates to DEIB. The last one, and this is really to Mike and Sharon, I know that we talked as personnel subcommittee that because the superintendent's contract is ready to be renegotiated, this is the 3rd year of Kirk being with us, that perhaps this is something that personnel should spearhead. But in thinking about it, researching it, and talking to Kirk a little bit more, this is perhaps something that is not to be handled in subcommittee. It first of all needs to be handled in executive session completely to start, and then we release it to the public after the executive session conversation. And it would perhaps just be too laborious for the personnel subcommittee to meet in executive session to then have the school committee meet in executive session. It is perhaps not a good idea for the personnel subcommittee to spearhead this. Okay, so Mike and Sharon, I'm thinking we would just either eliminate this because, it's not necessarily, it's not like we're going to say, we set a goal to negotiate a contract that sets the superintendent's salary at X, et cetera. It's not necessarily a goal setting exercise. So I would like to remove it.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. So guys, if there's no further discussion on the other goals, I would take a motion.
I'll move to approve, adopt the subcommittee goals as presented in the meeting materials.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to go through the list. Oh, Scott, is that a hand? Go ahead. Can you unmute? Oh, no. Do you want to?
Actually, I
wanna put
can
it-
unmute, but the challenge was because you're still screen sharing, it's hard to find the controls.
Oh, so sorry. Do you want me to let go? You want me to get rid of it?
Please.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was it. I just wanted you to stop screen sharing.
Sorry. Okay. Mission accomplished. Okay. No discussion. All right. So let's take the vote. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Scott.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
Shondor.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Yes.
Ooh, Sharon and Karen. That was a double one. Thank you guys. You're so efficient. Amy Cohen
Yes.
and Joe.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thank you for that. Let's move the agenda now. Just get rid of my crazy screen situation. Hold on. Okay. Now we're going to move over to a presentation regarding school climate survey. And I'll hand this over to Kirk to tee it up.
Yeah, I'll tee it up real quickly. I would like to present to you Assistant Superintendent Laura Friend for a presentation on school climate survey. Ms. Friend.
Thank you, Superintendent Downing. I think Alita is going to drive and she's going to share the presentation for me. Thanks, Alita. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share an overview of our social emotional learning and school climate surveys that were conducted last year. Last year was the first system-wide dip into these kinds of surveys. We know a little bit more. And so as we progress into the school year ahead, please know that we will be coming back to the committee to share out our results from our surveys as they are administered with a feedback loop, much as we will be doing with our universal screening, as Superintendent Downing just mentioned. Presentation for you this evening will serve three purposes. One, to provide an overview of the surveys that were implemented, to highlight takeaways from the surveys and the next steps we are taking in response, and then to share with you our plans for administration for this school year. Next slide, Alita. So the implementation of our social emotional surveys was and is part of our larger efforts to build a culture of feedback whereby we're soliciting student voices and responding to what they are telling us. We truly began this work last year. Last year, we administered the Panorama surveys to assess social emotional learning, school climate, and sense of belonging. But we also worked to develop student focus groups, and we also reached out to our Neshoba graduates to hear from them about the feedback about what they were up to and what feedback they had for us. This is ongoing work for us and work that we will continue in the year ahead. Next slide, Alita. Our work here connects with our strategic plan, specifically strategic objective number 3, and the strategic objective around culture and belonging, and developing a systematic approach to supporting the needs of all of our learners beyond academics. By hearing from our students and their needs and their experiences, we truly believe that we're better able to understand what is working and what is not working. Moving on. The specific purpose of our surveys was twofold and continues to be twofold. One, to glean information about our students' self-perceived social-emotional needs, and two, their self-perceived feelings of belonging within each of their school communities. Last year, we administered the surveys twice, once in December and once in June. We administered 3 different types of surveys: an elementary survey, a middle school survey, and a high school survey. The spring survey was identical to the winter survey to confirm patterns, trends, and needs as we closed out the school year, and we planned for the school year ahead, which is this year. The surveys were short, relatively short, taking about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Surveys were administered anonymously, with families being provided an opportunity to preview the surveys and to opt out, as well as students were also able to opt out of any question or the survey in their entirety as well. For your reference, we had 35 students who opted out of the survey, which reflected approximately 18 families. The high school survey included additional questions about school climate and student engagement, which the 3 through 8 surveys did not include. In June, our building principals shared key takeaways from their student surveys with families. Okay. Shared with you survey topics for our 3 through 8 surveys, again, focusing on the social emotional competencies as they relate to CASEL, and then our 9 through 12 topics as well, which, as you can see, include the elements of school climate, school safety, engagement, growth mindset, and grit. All of our surveys had questions around sense of belonging. Here I've shared with you some selected sample questions to show the types of questions that were asked on a particular topic. Of note here, as a point of note, many of the questions included the question stem in the past 30 days. As we've been debriefing this kind of question, conceptualizing time, the past 30 days, we surmise is more difficult for our younger students to be able to answer. We've just noted that. We've shared with you here the letters that all of our principals shared with their respective school communities in June. I'd like to just take a moment and recognize our principals for joining us in this work. Speaking as a prior principal, I respect our principals for engaging and digging into this work, sharing this information with their faculty and staff and with their communities. This really does mark an important juncture for us with this type of feedback and these feedback loops, which we're committed to engaging in. As is the case with all surveys, this data presents a snapshot of time, a snapshot of well-being for students at a particular moment in time. We examine this data as part of a broader landscape of information gathered to monitor students' well-being alongside other information, such as information from vocal data, youth risk behavior survey, check-ins with counselors, other anecdotal teacher information, and information that our families share with us as well. I'd like to make a note about the data and the structure of the questions because I think it's important. Each question had 5 options from which students could choose, with 1 being the most negative or least favorable response and 5 being the most positive or most favorable response. So in essence, 1 to 5. It's important to note that the structure of the Panorama survey rates only the top 2. So in essence, the 4 and 5 as a favorable response. The 1, 2, and 3 responses fall within the not favorable or the negative response span. So when you see some of our principals included in their letter, 60% of students responded favorably. That reflects the top 2 tier of their responses. I think that's just important to note. From the principal letters, we can see that each school community has identified its own emerging areas to address and strengthen and to celebrate with our initial implementation of these surveys. A point of note about the letter to the high school community. Dr. Boynton's letter references early themes and does not reference specific data. And I'd just like to share that this is due to the timing of the high school survey. When Dr. Boynton shared this letter with the community in June, the data had been shared with the leadership council at the high school, including our department heads, but it had not yet been shared with the entire faculty. And this is important. Since then, since this school year has begun, all of the high school faculty has been provided the data and has spent considerable time analyzing and reviewing the data within their departments under the guidance of their department heads. The data is shaping the high school school improvement plan, and Dr. Boynton will share the data with you when she presents her school improvement plan in, I think Superintendent Downing said, November. Okay, next slide. So with that, we do have district highlights to share. We had strong survey participation. Again, these were surveys that were administered to our students in grades 3 through 12. I'd like to make a note about the sense of belonging, with 78% of our students responding favorably to sense of belonging questions. That's an error. That should say grades 3 through 8. It's important to note that for us, anything below 100% for our students, sharing that they feel a sense of belonging is not okay. And so that we have work to do there. Also of note, we are looking at this response in terms of subgroups. We are looking at subgroup responses to this question by ability status, race, gender, and even self-reported grades at the high school. So for example, those students who self-report that they generally get A's or B's, how does that correlate with how they feel at the high school in terms of a sense of belonging? And concurrently, students who self-report generally getting B's, students generally getting anything lower than B's. We're looking at these questions with that lens as well. As we move forward this year, please know that we will be sharing out this level of information with our communities along with school committee. Last year was our first pass. In terms of areas of perceived relative strength district-wide, self-management seemed to rise to the top in all of our 3 through 8 buildings. And I'm speaking generally, which is uncomfortable because each school community has its own distinct areas of strength and relative areas of growth. And school safety emanated as a self-reported area of strength at our high school level. In terms of areas of greatest and noteworthy need, the areas of grit, and we prefer to call it learner's mindset and perseverance, which ties into our Portrait of an Ashoba graduate competencies across the board, were areas of need and an area from which we are going to be focusing this year, and you will see that reflected in our school improvement plans. At the district level, we're supporting the work with our structures and our systems. Alita, if you could just scroll over to the next slide, that would be great. In addition to responding and analyzing to the data as a leadership council, a district leadership team, and meeting with our principals, supporting our work with our PLC structure and that cyclical opportunity for our teams of teachers to work to talk about student progress academically as well as social emotionally. We're also continuing our work with our curriculum design and our intentional integration of our Portrait of Neshoba graduate competencies and our deeper learning and deeper assessment, which I know the committee is aware of. And we're continuing along with year 2 of our work with Dr. Larry Epstein, exposure through staff meetings for all staff, targeted support for our instructional assistants during our December and January early release, and bi-monthly consults with our mental health teams. And then a second parent-family workshop in the spring. And then at the school level, next slide, Alita. Our principals have shared and analyzed the panorama results with their faculty and staff. Principals have taken the results and selected priority areas and are currently working on specific goals for their school. They are developing measurable targets for improvement, action steps, and feedback loops to monitor progress, which you will see, and they will be reflected in their school improvement plans. We've provided some examples, or I've provided some examples for you here, so you can see that the work that is currently in process. I'd like to make a note of the high school plan and what's happening there as we speak. At the high school, each department is in the process of developing its own student learning goal. So each department at the high school will have its own shared student learning goal, which is centered around student engagement. Dr. Boynton is going to take all of those student learning goals by department and create a school-wide student learning goal focused on student engagement. Action steps will include curriculum revision, supported during early release time, student engagement look-fors in the classroom, and the development of student feedback loops to monitor progress. Again, you'll see this reflected in the high school school improvement plan. Provided 2 other examples of the work in progress there as it relates to our elementary and our middle schools focused around perseverance and learner's mindset. Also in development are student focus groups and additional opportunities to engage student voice to provide further insight alongside these school climate and student belonging and social emotional surveys. And then finally, panorama survey administration for the year ahead and what that's going to look like. We, again, will be administering 2 surveys this school year, one in October and one in March. The March survey administration marks a change from last year, where the survey was administered in June of last year. We have a panorama working group that met this week to determine those timeframes and those dates, and we think that that's going to work better for our school communities as it relates to spring assessments, MCAS testing, and end-of-year activities. We're going to work to align our survey questions to measure the efficacy of those student learning goals and the action steps that I just mentioned. We're going to work to integrate student voice into the survey creation. So providing students with an opportunity to take a look at the questions and provide feedback. As I mentioned, we're going to work to ensure that we're providing our families, our community with information about our progress as it relates to our students' responses. We're going to review our panorama survey results alongside our other measures. So we'll be administering the youth risk behavior survey this year. And that will be the year for us. Again, that's not an annual assessment. And we'll be taking a look at our results alongside the vocal results when they are provided to us. They're not available yet. Of course, we're going to adjust our action steps based on what the next administration of survey results tell us. And we're going to continue practices which we believe to be important, which include administering surveys anonymously, providing families with an opportunity to preview the surveys, providing families and students an opportunity to opt out if they, for any reason, they don't have to give a reason. And so we will continue those practices in the year ahead. That was a lot of information. I work to move through quickly.
Thanks, Laura. That was great. Alita, I think, yeah, we could let it go. So I'm going to go to Amy Vessels first.
Okay. Thanks for all the information.
Hi,
that was
Amy.
great. Hi. Sorry, I'm having to go through my phone for the audio. So my question, I have actually 2 questions.
Sure.
My first one is, are you getting feedback from parents on the sense of belonging question? Because I feel like parents could provide a pretty interesting perspective on that, like what they've seen their students, what their students have come home and talked to them about, or what have you. So are you eliciting any kind of feedback from parents about that? And my second question is, I know that the new, like the plans for this year, a lot of them involve student engagement, which is wonderful. But I'm wondering, are we also going to get kind of a report about, because one of the things the high school said there was a low sense of belonging. And so I'm wondering, are we going to get reports out about how they're tackling that or what steps they're taking? Because we're not going to hear about it as much. You know, it's not one of the goals necessarily. So I guess I'm just wondering about that.
I actually misspoke. So the two focus areas for the school improvement plan as it relates to this topic are sense of belonging and student engagement. So I highlighted the student engagement to give you a sense of the kind of work that was happening in the departments, but you will also hear Dr. Boynton report out on sense of belonging as well. I think we have not yet explored the idea of administering surveys to families to provide us an opportunity to provide us feedback about their students' experience, but we've been talking about that. And I think that might get to your first question, Amy. Yeah, thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, Panorama offers that. There's a family survey. We would want to vet it out for alignment and so that we can understand.
Yeah, I would just I'm going to piggyback on Amy really quick and say that a lot of the questions you're asking the kids are skills that families can assist you in building. And, you know, I know that a school has a lot of jobs to do and that you can leverage the amazing families in our 3 communities to help you. So, you know, that's future work, I'm sure, but I think we are important
really good
partners.
feedback. And we agreed multiple data sources, multiple data sets helps us triangulate the data and really understand what it is we need to understand. So that's really good feedback.
Yeah. And also I know you're doing parent university stuff around, you know, helping us understand how we can better teach our kids to persevere and develop those skills at home as well. Yeah, over to Jackie.
Just wanted to clarify, I know that it's included twice in the presentation, Mrs. Friend, but so as a Panorama user in the district of which I work, we are able to see, depending on a particular person's position, that data tied to a specific student. And so I'm just curious that the district is not using that as a specific.
No, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I didn't let you finish.
That's okay. The reason I ask is, you know, as part of the MTSS process, sometimes having that data has been very useful, especially when you're crosswalking other points of data and thinking about either universal, tier 2, and specific instruction. So I'm just curious, is that something that the district would consider?
We have not set up the surveys that way, and we have not done that intentionally because we're using it really as a universal screener for us to get a sense of our culture, our climate, and our overall students' needs. We have not taken the approach where we're using it to assess individual students' needs, and so it's not tied to our information management system. So when a student does take the survey anonymously, it truly is an anonymous survey.
Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it.
Dr. Reinert, if I can add on to that, because I'm familiar with what you're referring to as well, because I used it in my previous district. And that's part of what happens in a multi-tiered system of support when you're looking at social and emotional learning. You can look at those depths. We're beginning that journey here. And so we're building up to a place where we can do those sorts of things, but we're doing incremental work to get there.
Thank you.
Over to Mike.
Thank you. Mrs. Friend, you spoke about how the faculty at each of the schools has received the data, has analyzed the Panorama results, and how they're beginning to inform school improvement plans. And I'm wondering if there is any intention of sharing out maybe an expanded data set of the results, so that when parents, for example, look at a school improvement plan, they know what the data was that drove the decision to implement certain objectives.
I don't want to speak on behalf of the principals, but I do that often, so I'm going to. I think you'll see that referenced in their school improvement plans. When they share those with you, you'll see the data reference based on the results of the survey from June, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. So a larger data set, and maybe I don't know if raw data is appropriate, but a larger data set will be shared out and made public then.
Are you referencing the data set maybe in its entirety instead of like a summary of the data?
Correct.
Yeah. I think that part of our commitment to providing feedback loops, mind you, last year was our implementation, just our first year of implementation too. And when you're talking about first year of implementation with anything, implementation fidelity can be compromised. So now we have 1 year under our belt. We're feeling more secure with implementation and what it means. We are going to work to be sharing out that data with our school communities, I would say in totality. And I've spoken with our principals. The work is the work, right? We're here, where we're at, and we all want to move forward in support of our students. So I would say yes. But I certainly would want that to make it, be a collective commitment on the part of all of our principals.
Yep.
But I know philosophically we're all on the same page.
Great. Thank you.
All right, everyone. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you, Laura, for that, and Kirk for doing this work. It's so useful.
Madam Chair, may I make a comment?
Please.
This is actually quite a remarkable night for us, because in presenting the information that we've presented to you tonight, this is something we haven't done in the school system before. In revealing information to you, revealing this information to the community, setting up SMART goals and learning goals in our targets of this is that first incremental step. And I think that's awesome news for the students of our school system, but for our community at large, as we continue to go on that journey. I just remember we're starting this journey that way. So as we do that, we're going to want your feedback. We're going to grow from it, and we'll always continue to get better.
Great. All right, guys. So just keeping my eye on the clock. Can I get a thumbs up for everybody willing to continue through the last few agenda items? Probably going to go to, I'm predicting 9:27. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. So beyond new business, we are moving into the realm of finance and operations. I'll allow Kirk to tee it up, but I imagine this is Ross's domain.
Yes, but I would like to introduce our Director of Finance and Operations, Ross Mulcairn, to give our update. So Ross, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be back before you. My apologies for my absence at the September 13th meeting as I was out ill, but we're certainly looking forward to the year ahead out of the business office. My first agenda item tonight is with regards to the FY22 audit of financial statements performed by Markham. Markham was formerly, Markham purchased Melanson, who were our auditors prior to that that merger, in essentially the same staff that worked with us in previous years continue with us. Per the audit and our auditors, there are no findings that require disclosure through any sort of management letter. Obviously, this is good news, and I certainly do my own fair share of asking a lot of questions, as this is a new process and procedure for me. The Audit Advisory Committee, I know that Ms. Ellis will be presenting an update from them, but they will be meeting with our auditors in the coming weeks to fulfill the obligations of that group that's set forth in the regional agreement. bringing us to our FY23 audit contract, which is in form of the engagement letter that's provided through this evening's meeting materials. I think through the revisit and the revisions of the regional agreement over the last year, it certainly brought forth, at least to me, and obviously something I pay careful attention to, as this is my area. There's some highlighted in specific language regarding audits. Within the regional agreement, it's the school committee that technically has the contract with the auditors, and the district would like to have them engage through that engagement letter and get that signed as soon as possible. Specifically, you would see on page 13 of the engagement letter that Markham will be supporting the preparation of the district's balance sheet, which is in turn for our excess and deficiency certification that's done through the Department of Revenue. The sooner we can get that going and the sooner we can get our auditors on board with looking at our work, the sooner we can get in the queue with the Department of Revenue for the revision. That would bring us, the longer we wait on that, the further out we are in getting our certification most likely. And as you probably remember from previous budget iterations, the closer we get to that March 15th date for budget vote by the school committee, without that certification, it sort of puts us at risk of not technically being able to cite or use excess and deficiency funds as a revenue source within the budget, because it wouldn't be certified by the Department of Revenue. So just something I want to bring to your attention this evening. Any questions on audit pieces that I can answer?
I am not seeing any. So we can carry on.
Okay. Further along in my privilege this evening, I have the opportunity to present 3 grants for your approval. Alita, can you just bring up, if you have the Instructional Leadership Institute one first, but if you have something else first, I can certainly shift. Thank you. The August Instructional Leadership Institute grant as part of our teacher leadership initiatives within our strategic plan, Assistant Superintendent Friend and Principal Kate Boynton participated with 5 educators in a DESE facilitated instructional leadership workshop in August. For their participation and time in the summer, those educators are eligible for a stipend as outlined in the grant template that's presented this evening. I should have prefaced this. I know we have some new members who may or may not have seen grant templates. Mr. Simon brought forward the language within the policy about approving grants before expenditure. So we've created this grant template to capture all of that information so that we consistently have the same format for presenting grants to the school committee prior to their approval.
And Ross, would you like a motion to approve each one individually?
Yeah, given that they are 3 separate, why don't we make sure we do it that way? That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, and so I move to accept the grant herein stated as presented for the Instructional Leadership Institute stipends.
Second.
Thanks, Sharon. Any discussion? Go ahead, Scott.
So if I'm understanding the situation correctly, we've already spent this money, correct?
No, we've applied and we have gotten the grant, but we would not use it as an expenditure until it was approved by the school committee.
Did you not attend the workshop already?
They did, but we would not provide the stipends until it's approved by the school committee. The stipends were not guaranteed until after participation, and we had to apply for that part of it after they went.
So the 5 educators are waiting to be granted
Correct.
Each stipend.
Correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Leah, just so you know, I have motions for the rest of these.
Oh, thanks, Amy. Okay.
Yeah, so
Sorry to step on your toes.
no, I just didn't know if there needed to be specific language.
Yeah. Was I close?
The motion language that Alita provided was more technical, but I think
Alita, do you want me to rescind my motion and redo with the other one?
Ross, in the motion, should the amount be mentioned?
No, because the grant name is mentioned. I don't think the amount needs to be mentioned. No.
Okay. All right, guys, I'm not seeing any other discussion, but Amy, I'll let you do the next two. So let's take a vote. I vote yes. Scott?
Yes.
Amy Vessels?
Yes.
Mike Horish?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Amy Cohen?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Shondor?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. What is the next one, Ross?
Our second grant presented was for the summer academy that was held for students at the end of the summer. Details on this offering for students were presented by Assistant Superintendent Laura Friend at the September 13th school committee meeting. So we're just looking for a vote to approve this grant.
Excellent. To Ms. Cohen.
Okay, I move to accept the Summer Acceleration Academy DESE Fund Code 121 grant in the amount of $68,030 for expenditures presented in accordance with the school committee policy DD.
Second. Any questions? Seeing none? Oh, I see Dana. Go ahead, Dana.
I just want to clarify. So this also already happened, right? Did you say that this was already approved beforehand? And no?
This one, no, but the work happened.
It's the August 14th to 17th is when it happened.
Correct.
So what would happen if we voted one of these down? These people wouldn't get
So
paid.
given that it's paid, and I should probably come up with a little bit of a cheat sheet on this because this is a situation. No, it's fine. These are good questions because it's a little bit different, and I don't mean to, give a different answer that I gave Mr. Powell a moment ago. And certainly, when it comes to something like payroll, if somebody works, we have an obligation to provide that to them. So they worked under the contract because we have. They worked through this process. They worked and did this. And people that have been paid, if for some reason the committee did not approve the grant, that would be something that we'd have to encumber within the operating budget and have a fuller discussion. You're also going to see that when we talk about our title grants, which are federal grants that flow through DESE. We have people who are on payroll. Those are entitlement grants. So that's a little bit different because we're sort of like guaranteed that money. We just have to apply for it and do all the right, sort of meet all the right criteria. Within those, we have enough experience at this point that we know what qualifies and what doesn't. So not to give a double answer here, but it's a little bit different. We're talking about people being paid for their time, which a stipend is actually technically a little bit different. So if it needs further consideration for how to sort of categorize these different types, I'm happy to do that in the future.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we can take the vote. I vote yes. Scott?
Yes.
Amy Vessels?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Amy C?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Shondor?
Yes.
And Karen?
Yes.
All right, and finally, Ross.
Yes. So finally, our last grant presented this evening is the planning grant for the Innovations Pathway Program. This planning grant will allow the district to move forward with the creation of programs as described in the letter from Assistant Superintendent Friend and Principal Kate Boynton, which is linked in the notes section of the grant template. Moving forward with this does take a significant amount of planning. So this year of this process is for the planning of this program, and again, seeking approval so we can move forward with making these things happen within that planning process.
Amazing. Let's go over to Amy C for the motion.
Okay, I move to accept the Innovative Career Pathways Planning Grant, DESE Code 436 grant in the amount of $24,850 for expenditure as presented in accordance with school committee policy DD.
Second. Any further discussion?
So, a question, and maybe it's also generic to a change in the template, but when was this grant awarded?
That is it came in, I believe, over the summer. I'd have to pull out my email or go into the system. I don't know if Assistant Superintendent Friends has that off the top of her head, what date we were notified of the award.
Doesn't it say it on the form, August 1st to the 3rd? Or is that a different one?
That was a different one, right? So this one is for this school year, but what Mr. Simon is asking is when were we notified of the award?
Sort of to our discussion on the last two, it would be sort of useful to know how much time has elapsed between when they're awarded and when it's brought to the committee.
And getting things during the summer is a unique situation because the school committee doesn't meet. So perhaps something I know we have full agendas at budget and warrant, but we did review this process at budget and warrant last year, so it might be worth tweaking it at budget and warrant during this school year.
All right. Well, if I don't, this wouldn't prevent you from voting, would it, Shandor?
No.
Okay. So Laura, if you find it, great. If not, maybe something for later. Any further discussion?
I'm looking for it. I'm sorry. I'm waiting to be recognized.
Oh yeah. Do you have it?
I'm looking for it, but I know that it was at the start of this school year. The school year had started, and that is the challenge. And I don't know if Mr. Mulcairn, we want to just talk about process, that the first two grants were all announced at the conclusion of the school year during the summer. We didn't want to miss out on the opportunity for those opportunities for either the Institute or the Summer Acceleration Academy. So we move forward. So that timing is challenging because the school committee wasn't available to meet. So I mean, that's something that we can talk through, Mr. Mulcairn.
Just to respond to Mr. Simon's question, we got notice of the Innovation Careers Pathway Planning Grant as DESE approved. Oops, that's when I submitted, excuse me. It looks like we received just at the very beginning of this month.
Okay, great. All right, guys, not seeing any other questions, so we'll move forward with the vote. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Scott.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Shandor.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Amy C.
Yes.
And Karen.
Yes.
All right. Final piece here, treasurer appointment. I think that's still you, Ross.
That is still me. So my final agenda item, we're seeking approval of the committee to appoint Victoria Chartier as treasurer with signatory authority in said role. So as many of you know, she's our treasurer and has been our treasurer from quite some time. She has a sort of combined role where most of her time is spent on the HR specialist function within the HR office, and she's a district employee. However, she's moving into a new role in a different district, and we've posted her vacancy as solely an HR specialist. As a combined role posting would not yield candidates. It would just be too specialized. As a treasurer role needs to have somebody who is a certified Massachusetts municipal treasurer. Therefore, as Ms. Chartier will no longer be full-time district employee, she'll work with us on a contractual basis to continue treasurer duties when she's outside of obligation in her new district. Her FY24 appointment is even more critical at the present time as we move forward with the building project and the bonding around that.
Amy, do you have a motion for this?
Yes. I move to appoint Victoria Chartier as the fiscal year 24 district treasurer effective October 10th, 2023.
I'll second that. What discussion do we have, Amy?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the purpose of the motion here is just to kind of formalize the fact that her title has changed and that she's now just going to be the treasurer as opposed to fulfilling these two roles so that you can hire somebody for the HR role.
Yeah, so outside of the HR process, in looking at the school committee policy, and I don't know previous approvals or anything like that, I'm just looking at it this year. If you look into the school committee policy, it does say that the treasurer shall be granted signatory powers by the committee on an annual basis. So if that maybe just happened in a different way because she was a full-time employee of the district, I don't know for sure. Given the situation that we're in with bonding for the high school, I think it's imperative that we ensure that the school committee has given her signatory powers as an appointed treasurer so that we can move forward, because through our review of documents that may be done by a potential purchaser of our bonds, we want to make sure that we have everything buttoned up as much as possible so we don't have to come back at a special meeting or a future meeting to deal with any of this.
Got it.
Thanks. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just had a quick question for Mr. Mulcairn. You had indicated that there's special certification that's required for the treasurer position, Mr. Mulcairn?
But my understanding is that somebody who's going to be a municipal treasurer and act as such needs to have the Massachusetts Municipal Treasurer certification.
Okay, I was just inquiring because I'm as old as dirt, and back in my prior district, the treasurer was actually a member of the committee. So it sounds like the Commonwealth has enhanced the requirements for that position. So I just was wondering what the certification was. Thank you, Mr. Mulcairn.
Shandor?
Just point of clarification, is this going to be an employee of this district, or are they a contractor, or what exactly will the relationship be?
So she'd be employed under a separate contract, which is very different than the contract that she's in up until the end of next week. It's a separate contract.
And her moving to a different school district, Ross, doesn't create any kind of conflict of interest in her continuing duty?
Nope.
Okay.
No, we've already discussed hours and space and all those types of things. So.
Okay. And it is budget neutral? Considering her.
Potentially, it depends upon some other hiring stuff. I mean, yeah, no guarantees on that based on the delta on new hire, but potentially. Yep.
Yeah, I would like to comment here, Madam Chair.
Please. Yeah.
I would, we haven't made the hiring process and that recommendation hasn't come to me yet. I do not anticipate this is going to be budget neutral because we've been able to, by virtue of the fact that Ms. Chartier has been an employee with us, we're able to take advantage of her full-time employee here and do the treasurer duties. So in decoupling that, there may be, a fiscal raise to that. It's just a matter of which candidates experience that sort of thing as they come in.
Okay. Amy?
I just want to make sure the motion achieves what Ross wants, which I thought was like signatory authority. And this is just talking about appointing her as district treasurer. So I just wanted to make sure.
I think they'd be one and the same because we would have a motion and a school committee vote. If you feel like adding signatory power or authority into that, I don't have any disagreement with it. It could be and.
I don't think it's necessary because the treasurer's position is outlined in regulation and policy, and that position is the signatory.
Okay. All right. I'm good. I'm prepared to vote.
All right, guys, let's go. So I say yes. Scott?
Yes.
Amy Vessels?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Amy Cohen?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Shandor?
Yes.
And Karen?
Yes.
All right. Well, Ross, that was an exciting report. Thank you for all of that.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Guys, the only item for unfinished business is our school committee DEIB statement. I left this on the agenda largely because DRJ is busy planning a meeting right now with the help of Jackie, and they are inviting me to bring all of your feedback to a public meeting so that we can start to draft that discussion and meet the goal that we set earlier tonight. We are hoping to meet on Sunday at this point, but unknown if we can get that posting up in time. So if not Sunday, in the next week or so, Dear Jay, Jackie, and I will be meeting to start building that statement draft to bring to you ASAP. All right. So that's all I have to say about that. Let's move on to the subcommittee reports, and we're going to go to budget and warrant first. Mr. Horsch is the chair.
All right. Well, we met yesterday, and at our meeting, we looked at the FY24 results of operations. As we close the fiscal year out, we also looked at, we previewed the FY25 budget. We looked at a draft that Mr. Mulcairn put together regarding how our operations reports are going to be presented to the school committee. We'll have another update at our next meeting. We also looked at an updated version of the budget timeline that Mr. Mulcairn presented last year. So there are some additions to that we'll probably see in a future meeting as well. And our next meeting is on October 10th.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. All right, let's move on to communication. And Sharon is the chair.
No report.
All right. Thanks, Sharon. Over to the school building committee. Joe, anything else to add?
Yeah, I just had a couple things that I wanted to state, Madam Chair. I know it's late, so I'll be very brief. This is not going to be as long a report as it was the last meeting. First of all, I just want to report that our next building committee meeting is October 19th. I did want to take a moment to thank a few people for all of their efforts over the past several months. Without saying Superintendent Downing, Mr. Mulcairn, for all their efforts, I do want to point out Ms. Vivrito, thank you for braving the wrath of the town moderator in Stowe. Ms. Cohen, thank you for, holding signs and braving the traffic on Route 117. And to Dr. Reinert, I also want to thank you for, exposing yourself to potential Lyme disease as we stood out in front of the town hall in Lancaster. I also want to just let you know that on Tuesday morning, I did send a email to former Superintendent Clenchey and thanked her for all of her efforts. I got a very nice response from her. She said I made her cry. I don't know if I did or not, but that's what she said. And I just want to thank everybody on the committee for all of your efforts over the past several weeks in regards to the town meeting and the town elections. I want to leave you with one thought as we move forward with this project. A little bit of, I feel, unfinished business. And so those of you who don't know, that one of the issues that was raised during this building process was an issue with regards to permitting fees that may be due and payable to the town of Bolton. I would like the members to kind of ponder this issue, and I would particularly ask our Bolton reps to give it some serious thought. Historically, there has been some relief given for these types of projects. Bolton is taking sort of a neutral position at this point. They basically haven't taken any action on it. The permitting fees are currently stand as what they are. We're looking at over $2 million in permitting fees for this project. Might be something that this committee and perhaps our Bolton reps might wish to petition the select board in Bolton to reconsider. Other than that, Madam Chairman, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. Over to personnel, and actually Sharon was elected the chair.
Personnel met last week. We spent a lot of time talking with the superintendent about his goals, which you have heard lots about already. So that's personnel.
Thanks. Anything from policy?
No report. We're meeting later this month.
Awesome. And Amy, you are the chair of policy?
I am.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Oh, I do have one question, I guess. Kirk, are you sending us some information? You had said something about sending us some information for that meeting about the policy that we need to work on around like parent communication. I'm trying to remember exactly.
Yeah, I got it on my calendar to get my act together and get that stuff to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kirk. Thanks, Amy. Let's go over to our advisory committees, and we'll start with audit advisory. Anything, Dina?
Yes. So I was elected chair, which is going to be very exciting. And David Yesaway, I think I'm pronouncing his name, will continue his role as secretary. We are going to schedule a meeting with the auditors to review the 2022 audit. Once we nail down a date, we'll invite everyone, and we strongly suggest attendance from budget and warrants. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. I think we're thinking end of next week, so we'll see how many people we can get in for that time frame. The committee wanted to recommend keeping our current auditors, Markham, for the 2023 audit cycle, but our recommendation was to explore a different set of auditors for 2024. This is not based on performance, but that the committee feels that diversifying perspectives every so often is beneficial for the district. So the question is, what's the process for that? For basically, is that something that we would do as a school committee as a whole? I'm not really sure how it's worked in the past. Is that something that the audit advisory committee would be tasked with, finding different options and presenting them to the committee and then voting on it that way? So just looking for input on how to move forward with that.
Yeah, so I would say that by our protocols, as a chairperson, Dana, you can contact Kirk directly and maybe just CC me to begin that conversation. I mean, it's not super pressing, obviously, but Kirk can kind of liaise with Ross on that as well, just to, move in that direction if that's the will of the committee.
Okay, then that's all I have.
Awesome, thank you. Over to Deirdre. Jackie.
Hi, everyone. So the only update I have is that Deirdre is prioritizing meeting as early as is feasible around reviewing the decision-making tool that it would be recommending for the school committee to utilize. And so that meeting is occurring on October 5th, not the 6th, because I was a little confused about when it was actually meeting. And then from there, they'll be bringing recommendations to the school committee. So more to come.
Awesome. And we're also working in that extra meeting for the statement as well. Or maybe we can just double up if the first doesn't work.
That is a separate working group that is meeting on the 5th. So it would be a particular subset of the DRJ group. But I'm hoping that we can meet when we had recommended, because then that way we can have something to work towards for our next meeting. But I am excited about the decision-making tool. I think they have some really good resources to go through and decide as a group. So
awesome. Look forward to seeing that. Over to CPAC and Karen.
No report right now. I've reached out to CPAC and I'm hoping to join their October meeting. And I did also just want to put in a plug for their Facebook page. If people are on Facebook, they have really good resources, and they're really good about adding kind of local resources and local goings on. So I would just throw it out there to people if they are interested. It's a good resource.
Awesome, thanks. And then to Scott for our new OPEB Management Advisory Committee.
Yes, so we met again on Monday this week, and we are meeting again next Wednesday when we expect to review a full set of documents and hopefully agree on and approve a recommendation so that I might be able to provide a preliminary recommendation to the committee either later in October or early in November at the latest.
Great, thanks, Scott. All right, guys, so looking at the planning calendar, items for next agenda, is anything burning a hole in your pocket right now? So as always, you can contact me over the course of the next couple of weeks to add things to the October 11th meeting. The agenda is a little light right now, but that never lasts. So more to come there. All right, and as promised, it's 9:27. So I'm going to move to adjourn, everyone.
Second.
All right, Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Scott.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
Mike.
9:27. Wow. Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Condor.
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Amy Cohen,
Yes.
and Karen.
Yes.
All right, my friends. Catch you next time.
Leah, stay on for a
Leah.
second.